The first lie landed like a dropped glass, sharp and sudden, when my phone buzzed with a hospital name that didn't recognize my wife. She was standing in the kitchen tying her shoes, hair pulled back in a way she used when she was nervous, telling me she was going to sit with Claire because things were getting worse. Her voice had the right softness, the practiced care of someone talking about sickness. She kissed my cheek, smelled like the lemon soap she liked, and promised she wouldn't be late. I watched her leave with a tight smile I didn't feel, the door clicking shut behind her, the house settling into its evening creaks. It should have ended there. A worried husband waits, makes dinner for one, sends a few texts that go unanswered because hospital rooms swallow time. That was the story she handed me, and I wanted to accept it because the alternative felt like stepping into traffic on purpose. But an hour later, a missed call notification flashed across my screen while I was rinsing a plate. The caller ID read Mercy General. I called back, expecting to be told I'd missed an appointment reminder or some automated nonsense. Instead, a woman answered with a calm voice and asked if I was returning a call. I said yes, that I thought my wife might have been there with a friend. There was a pause, the kind that stretches thin and bright. She asked for my wife's name. I gave it. Then Claire's. Another pause. Paper rustled. Keys clicked. "I'm sorry," she said gently, already moving on in her tone. "We don't have anyone by that name admitted or checked in today." I stood there with water running over my fingers, the plate slipping and clinking against the sink. I thanked her because that's what you do when someone hands you a small bomb and walks away. When I hung up, the kitchen felt too quiet, the clock loud, my own breathing unfamiliar. I told myself it could be another hospital. I told myself Claire could have been discharged earlier, moved, transferred, that my wife could be on her way somewhere else entirely. I told myself a lot of things because belief is easier than knowledge. When she didn't come home until after midnight, the air between us felt thick, like humidity before a storm. She dropped her keys in the bowl, sighed in a way that asked for forgiveness without words, and leaned against the counter. "It was a long night," she said. "She's scared." I nodded. I asked questions that skimmed the surface because I didn't trust my voice to go deeper. "Which doctor? Which floor? How is she doing?" My wife answered quickly, a little too quickly, details blurring into each other like she'd memorized a summary but skipped the chapters. In bed, she turned away from me and fell asleep fast. I stared at the ceiling, counting the faint cracks, listening to her breathing even out, wondering when the room had started feeling like a place I didn't belong. The next day, I called Mercy General again. I told myself I just wanted to be helpful, that maybe I could send flowers, that it would be kind. The same woman answered. The same answer came back. No record. I didn't confront her then. I started watching instead, a quiet shift inside me that felt like betrayal in reverse. I noticed how her phone never left her hand anymore, how she smiled at messages and tucked the screen away when I walked by. I noticed the way she showered as soon as she got home, how she avoided my eyes when she talked about Claire, how her stories stayed vague no matter how many times she told them. One evening, she said she was heading out again. I asked if she wanted company. The word no came too fast. "I just need to be there," she said. "It's not about you." The door closed. The house exhaled. I sat on the couch and stared at the spot where she'd been standing, my chest tight with a feeling I couldn't name without breaking something. I followed her that night. I hated myself for it even as I grabbed my keys. The sky was low and gray, streetlights buzzing awake. I stayed far enough back to feel foolish, close enough to see her turn into a neighborhood I didn't recognize. She parked in front of a brick apartment building with a blue awning, not a hospital in sight. I watched her get out, smooth her jacket, and walk inside like she knew exactly where she was going. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Still here. She's resting now." I didn't move. I sat in my car with my hands on the wheel until my knuckles ached, until the truth pressed against me from all sides. When she finally came out an hour later, her face looked different. Softer. Lighter. Like someone who'd set down a heavy bag. She drove home. I followed at a distance and wondered how many nights I'd been waving goodbye to a stranger. At home, I pretended to be asleep. She slid into bed carefully, her body warm, familiar, and unbearably far away. I turned toward the wall and cried without sound, the tears soaking into the pillow like a confession I couldn't speak yet. The next morning, I told her I knew. Not everything. Just enough to see how she'd respond. "There's no record at Mercy General," I said, stirring my coffee so I wouldn't have to look at her. She froze, spoon hovering over her bowl. For a second, the room held its breath. "I didn't say mercy," she said finally. "I said a hospital." "You said the hospital," I replied. "You never corrected me." Her eyes flicked up, sharp. "Why were you calling?" I laughed, a short sound that surprised us both. "Because I care," I said. "Because I'm your husband." Silence stretched. She set the spoon down, slow and careful. "You're imagining things." The words landed heavy. Not anger. Not fear. Dismissal. Like my doubt was a stain she could wipe away if she pressed hard enough. I told her about the apartment building. About following her. About the blue awning and the way she'd looked when she came out. Her face drained of color, then filled again with something like resolve. "His name is Evan," she said. I didn't plan for it to happen. The room tilted. The floor felt unsteady under my feet. I waited for more because part of me still hoped this was a story with a softer ending. "He's not sick," she continued. "He was going through a divorce. I was trying to help. By lying to me," I said. "By telling me you were sitting next to someone who might die." She flinched. "I didn't think it would go this far." "But it did," I said quietly. "And you let me believe you were somewhere you weren't." She cried then, the way she always did when things went wrong. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. The days that followed blurred together. Conversations looped. Apologies repeated. She said she was confused, lonely, that she hadn't felt seen in a long time. I listened and heard my own failures echo back at me, distorted and amplified. I asked if she loved him. She hesitated. That was answer enough. One night, after another argument that went nowhere, I went back to the apartment building alone. I don't know what I thought I'd find. Closure, maybe. Proof that I could hate him and make this simpler. Evan answered the door looking surprised, and then resigned. He was ordinary. Tired eyes. A living room with half-packed boxes.
"Nothing about him," screamed Villain. "I didn't know," he said. "Hands up like that mattered. She told me you were separated." I believed him, because believing him hurt less than believing everyone was lying. When I got home, my wife was sitting on the floor of our bedroom, clothes spread around her like evidence. She looked up at me, eyes red, hopeful in a way that felt cruel. "I'll stop seeing him," she said. "We can fix this." I sat on the edge of the bed and thought about the hospital that never knew her name, about the nights I'd waited, about the way trust breaks quietly before it shatters. "I don't know how to live in a house where I have to check records to believe you," I said. She nodded, tears falling onto her hands. "I know." I slept on the couch that night. In the morning, I packed a bag. She stood in the doorway and watched, saying nothing, finally understanding that some damage doesn't look dramatic when it's happening, but it leaves marks you can't ignore. At the door, I paused. I wanted to say something that would make sense of all of it. Something clean and final. Instead, I said the only true thing left. "I loved you," I said. She nodded again. The door closed between us, soft and final. Outside, the air was cold and clear. I stood there for a moment, breathing, feeling the ache settle into something like clarity, knowing that some lies don't just break trust. They change the shape of everything that comes after.